Distinguished Ambassador von Götze, Distinguished Ambassador Yanagi, Distinguished Ambassador Flor, President Satomi, President Mishima, dear Mrs. Seibold-Bultmann, dear colleagues of research organizations, dear colleagues and friends, and last but not least, dear Seibold-Preis awardees. Today, I have the great honor to welcome you on behalf of the German Research Foundation and especially also in the name of our DFG Secretary General, Mrs. Ahrens.
Yes, also a warm welcome from my side.
My name is Ingrid Krüßmann and I'm the director of the DFG office in Japan and deputy head of international cooperation of the DFG. I'm also heading the Asia-Pacific team, and I'm one of the German directors of the Sino-German Center in Beijing. I'm delighted to see the names of so many familiar persons who are with us on this occasion in the virtual conference. I would really have liked to meet you all in Tokyo, as we had originally planned, as you all know. You will be aware why we had to cancel the on-site event and which our Japan team had already meticulously prepared until we had to take the sad decision to switch to a virtual exchange. Now we are here on our conference platform, and I'm very much looking forward to our virtual exchange today. Today is an occasion to celebrate. First of all, we are of course celebrating our 4 distinguished awardees who are inspiring us with their commitment to German-Japanese collaboration and with their excellent achievements in this matter. We are celebrating the awarding ceremony of the Eugen and Ilse Seibold-Preis, which was established in 1997. The prize has been awarded 12 times until now to 26 outstanding researchers from Japan and Germany. I remember taking part in many inspiring ceremonies, and it makes me happy and also a little bit sad to moderate the final edition today. Finally, and likewise importantly, we are celebrating the relations between Japan and Germany. These have been built over many years, 160 years to be precise, and they manifest themselves in multiple areas, including a close cooperation in academia and research. Let me say a couple of words about our cooperation with Japan at the DFG. For us, Japan is one of our major international partners. We are successfully working together with Japanese partner organizations like the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, JSPS, the Japan Science and Technology Agency, JST, and the Japan Agency for Medical Research and Development, AMED. Many outstanding projects have been funded, and we are continuing to create opportunities for researchers from Japan and from Germany to work together closely. We offer funding for bilateral workshops, joint projects, and even international research training groups, the so-called IRTGs. When the DFG established a representative office in Tokyo in 2009, I had the pleasure to coordinate the planning. Ever since, we are developing activities together with our colleagues in Tokyo to strengthen the ties between Japanese and German research communities. It is a sign of mutual trust and mutual interest that we can organize bilateral events that involve an in-depth exchange on relevant topics that shape our world today. Let us enjoy this occasion together, celebrate what has been achieved, and look into the future with curiosity and creativity. Now, let me give the floor, or should I say the screen, to Ambassador von Götze of the German Embassy in Japan to deliver his opening remarks. We are very grateful that you made it possible to join us today, Ambassador von Götze.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dr. Ahrens, Ambassador Yanagi, Ambassador Flor. It is a great pleasure to deliver a speech today and talk to you from afar and to see my colleague Yanagi in Berlin, at least on a video screen. As you said, we are celebrating today a very important event, the unfortunately last handing out of the Seibold-Preis to very distinguished awardees, Professor Shigeyoshi Inoue, Professor Regine Mathias, Professor Hidenori Takagi, and Professor Kanako Takayama. In my view, the Seibold-Preis that has dedicated its work to promoting Japanese scientific cooperation since so long has really made great progress in furthering our cooperation in this field, and it's in that sense a pity that today we are seeing the last award of the prize. Nevertheless, I'm absolutely sure the Japan-German coordination in science and academic affairs will go on, will continue, and is needed more than ever. Because the challenges we are facing in today's world, in the 21st century, might even be greater than it was thought in 1997, shortly before the turn of the millennium. Digitalization is speeding up. The work environment is very much changing, but also the challenges for humanities, the challenges for our free lifestyle, for democracies, human rights, and the rule of law are bigger than ever. And that requires that the third and the fourth biggest economic powers on this planet, Japan and Germany, cooperate as close as ever possible and combine the strengths that the academic scenes in both countries have. And we are looking back not only to 160 years of diplomatic relations, we are looking back to more than 330 years of scientific cooperation, because Engelbert Kämpfer landed in Japan already 1690, and I think that started the substantial and real exchange between the scientific researchers and the academic worlds between our two countries. So let's continue this important work, and I congratulate all the awardees of this year's prize wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador von Götze, for your inspiring words. We do appreciate your ongoing support for our work in Japan and to our office. Thank you very much, Professor von Götze. Now let me pass on the words and screen to Professor Yanagi, to Ambassador Yanagi, I'm sorry, of the Japanese Embassy in Germany to deliver his opening remarks. We are very grateful for your valuable time to join us here today. Ambassador Yanagi, please.
Yeah, dear Secretary General Dr. Arens, dear Clemens, and Professor Inoue, Professor Mathias, Professor Takagi, and Professor Takayama, and ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to today's ceremony to award the Eugen and Ilse Seibold-Preis. The prize is awarded to outstanding researchers who have made a great contribution to mutual understanding between Japan and Germany and to the advancement of scholarship. I'd like to warmly congratulate the 4 laureates receiving the prize today and thank them for their contribution so far to academic exchange between our two countries, as well as to the growth of knowledge. I think the concrete merit as well as the reason for the awarding of the prize will be listed to the subsequent ceremony, so that I do not want to elaborate on them in my remarks. However, I know that Professor Inoue in the field of chemistry, Professor Mathias in the field of Japanese studies, Professor Takagi in the field of materials physics, and Professor Takayama in the field of law have each made extraordinary scientific achievement and have also made great contribution to the academic exchange between Japan and Germany. Professor Inoue came to the Technical University of Munich during my tenure as Consul General in Munich, and I had a chance to talk with him. Even though we only meet online today, I'm glad that we can see each other again. This year, we celebrate the anniversary of the 160 years of friendship, Japan-Germany. Regrettably, due to the corona pandemic, organizing in-person event was difficult in the first half of this anniversary year, and many events has to be cancelled or postponed. However, with the progress of the vaccination campaign in this country, in-person events have gradually been able to be held again since the summer. Well, at this moment, it's becoming again a little bit more difficult, but anyway, it's possible today. However, with the progress of the vaccination campaign, looking back at the history of Japan and Germany, Japan has learned an extraordinary amount from Germany in the past. And also in the present, both countries maintain very close relations within the cooperation in science and technology, as well as in the academic sector. This is indeed thanks to the persons who have been honored today, as well as to all those involved, starting DFG, who have committed themselves to today's award ceremony. I would now like to take this opportunity to give you a brief overview of recent Japanese-German relations. The traditionally strong ties between the two countries have become even more robust in recent years. In addition, in view of the increasing volatility of the international situation, the importance of Japan and Germany, which share universal values such as freedom, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, as well as having a highly developed economy and political stability, is growing. This also applies to the importance of cooperation between the two countries. In the course of my various activities in the country, I myself feel clearly that the relationship between Japan and Germany must be enhanced not only by means of cooperation in politics and economics, but also by forming the cooperative ties in a wide range of fields, including science and technology, the academic field, and culture. In particular, Japan and Germany are countries facing common challenges such as climate change or demographic change, and both have great scientific and technological potential. I think it's important that our two countries continue to advance their interaction as trusting partners in the future, based on the long history of the exchange. When I met with the president of JST, Dr. Hamaguchi, and the president of JSPS, Dr. Satomi, this summer in Tokyo, they both told me that they value the cooperation with the DFG. When I also met with the president of the Leibniz Association, Professor Kleiner, and the president of the Helmholtz Association, Professor Wiesler, they both expressed the interest in strengthening relations with Japan. I believe that there's a shared understanding among all concerned of the importance of cooperation between our two countries. The Eugen and Ilse Seibold-Preis is financed by a fund set up by the Seibold couple through a foundation. Professor Seibold himself was formerly president of the DFG, and it has been awarded since '97. So now I've heard that the foundation will cease its activities with the year's award ceremony. So this is the last occasion. While the discontinuation of the awarding of this prize is extremely regrettable, I'd like to take this opportunity to pay my sincere respect to the work of the Seibold couple. Moreover, the DFG is making a valuable contribution to scientific cooperation between Japan and Germany, not only in the context of this award, but in a variety of the areas. Therefore, I'd like to continue to ask the DFG for its support of this exchange. The embassy will also work to promote bilateral academic exchange in cooperation with participating organizations such as DFG or the JSPS. In closing, I'd like to again acknowledge the award winner, Professor Inoue, Professor Mathias, Professor Takagi, and Professor Takayama for their past achievement, and to wish those present today all the best for the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Yanagi, for your encouraging words. It is reassuring to hear that the scientific exchange receives so much support from both the embassies and the foreign ministries. Thank you again for joining this morning and afternoon in Japan. For the next part of the event, I would like to hand over to our DFG Secretary General, Dr. Heide Ahrens, to say a few words on the political dimension of scientific cooperation between Germany and Japan, as well as on the Seibold-Preis. Please, Mrs. Ahrens.
Yes, thank you, Ingrid. And let me extend a very warm welcome to our very distinguished guests and a numerous audience today. The presence of both the ambassadors of Germany in Japan, Ambassador Dr. von Götze, and of Japan in Germany, Ambassador Yanagi, shows clearly how high this cooperation is being valued on the political levels in both countries. Let me therefore share some thoughts about the importance of scientific cooperation between Japan and Germany. Some of the factors have already been enlisted that make cooperation between Japan and Germany so exceptional. Let me point out an additional and extremely important one from our point of view. Our successful cooperation is not merely an issue of a similar quality of research. Japanese and German researchers also share many standards and, moreover, values. The commitment for excellence in research, a strong dedication to and appreciation of both discovery and application, and, of course, an attitude of openness and respect towards international cooperation. Last but not least, cooperation in science also entails a better and deeper understanding between the people of both countries, and this shows clearly that science diplomacy plays an important role on the international stage, especially in times when the relationships on the international stage get more and more strained. I am sure that an in-depth knowledge of international exchange is something that very strongly characterizes our four Seibold awardees. Each of them has pushed cooperation forward in his or her respective field, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about their work as well as their ideas for the future in post-pandemic times during our event, and especially during the panel discussion, which will include our audience today. But first, it is my pleasure to welcome you and to introduce the Seibold-Preis to you. Let me start by speaking about the history of the prize. We have heard some words about this. The prize was endowed and named in honor of Eugen Seibold, DFG president from 1980 to 1985, and his wife, Dr. Ilse Seibold. In 1994, the marine geologist Eugen Seibold and the US environmentalist Lester Brown were jointly awarded the Blue Planet Prize by the Japanese Asahi Glass Foundation. Eugen and Ilse Seibold donated a large part of the prize money to set up an endowment, not only to express their gratitude, but also to promote understanding and research cooperation between Germany and Japan. I am the more delighted that Eugen and Ilse Seibold's daughter, Mrs. Seibold-Bultmann, is here with us today. And especially warm welcome to you, Mrs. Seibold-Bultmann. The DFG has awarded the Eugen and Ilse Seibold-Prize almost every 2 years since 1997. It is endowed with 10,000 euros and is awarded to one German and one Japanese scientist who have made an outstanding contribution to cross-cultural cooperation. The prize is awarded in all subjects, alternating between the humanities and social sciences, with law and economics on the one hand, and natural sciences, including life sciences, mathematics, and engineering on the other. Since 1997, we have received far more than 100 nominations, and I would like to thank all the organizations and scientists who have supported us, not only by putting forward candidates, but also by peer reviewing and participating in the selection juries. I especially would like to mention the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation and my colleague, Dr. Enno auf der Heide, who has been part of the jury by virtue of his office. Thank you and your colleagues for your great commitment over so many years. As today Stefan Meli is taking part, my colleague from the Humboldt Foundation, I would like to ask him to convey our best regards to Enno auf der Heide. Due to the depletion of the foundation's capital, the Eugen and Ilse Seibold Prize has been awarded for the last time in 2020. To create a fine and strong stimulus by the prize, the number of prize winners has been increased. The prize money has been raised, and all scientific areas have been included in the selection. As you know, we had to postpone the awarding ceremony due to the coronavirus pandemic. Last year, we were saddened to hear that Ilse Seibold, who still attended the last ceremony in 2019, has deceased. With her passing, we have lost a great scientist and a strong supporter of scientific affairs. It is thanks to the commitment of Eugen and Ilse Seibold that we have been able to award this prize. By endowing this prize, they have set an example for the promotion of understanding between the cultures and our two countries. And when I look at the list of previous prize winners and the outstanding nominations received for each round, it is clear that there is so much more for which to thank them. Their commitment has enabled cooperation between people to flourish. It has stimulated the exchange of ideas and scientific projects. Their endeavors are certainly bearing fruit. On behalf of science, I would like to thank them for their commitment. Now let us turn to our 4 Seibold awardees. In the final round, a total of 24 suggestions for candidates were submitted, 11 from Germany and 13 from Japan. All suggested candidates were outstanding, making the selection difficult for the jury. Therefore, not all achievements could be honored. However, it was impressive to see how much interest candidates take in each other's countries and how diverse the work and the relationships with Japanese-German cooperation are. Let me present to you the winners of the 2020 Seibold-Prize. Professor Dr. Hidenori Takagi, Director of the Max-Planck-Institut of Solid-State Research in Stuttgart and Professor of Physics at the University of Tokyo. Professor Dr. Regine Mathias, until 2016 professor at the Department of Japanese History of the Ruhr University Bochum. Professor Dr. Kanako Takayama, professor at the Faculty of Law of Kyoto University. And Professor Dr. Shigeyoshi Inoue, professor at the Department of Chemistry of the Technical University of Munich. We shall now listen to the laudatory speeches. We will begin with the laudation for Professor Takagi. This will be delivered by Professor Makoto Gonokami from the Department of Physics of the University of Tokyo. The floor is yours.
I would like to express my heartfelt congratulations to Professor Hidenori Takagi on receiving the Eugen und Ilse Seibold-Preis. I'm very happy about this award, not only as a former president, but also as a researcher in the same field of solid-state physics and as a long-term friend. He was awarded this prize for his invaluable contributions in developing extraordinary deep collaborations in condensed matter science between Germany and Japan, and in promoting the exchange of young students and junior scientists between the two countries. Professor Takagi has been a full professor at the University of Tokyo since 1999. He also accepted the position of a director at the Max-Planck-Institut for Solid-State Research, Stuttgart in 2013, and an Alexander von Humboldt professorship at the University of Stuttgart in 2014. He became one of the first cross-appointment professors at the University of Tokyo. Even after having relocated to Germany, he has shown great leadership in running his research group in Tokyo, in close collaboration with his group in Germany. I understand that his motivation to accept this intercontinental cross-appointment came from his strong will to contribute to further globalize the University of Tokyo, and more specifically, to create a deeper level of scientific exchange between Japan and Germany. His cross-appointment has indeed promoted tight research collaborations between his groups in Germany and Japan. Furthermore, this cross-appointment and his strong international network helped generate close international collaborations among the members of the University of Tokyo at an unprecedented level. Professor Takagi took the initiative to launch the Max-Planck-Institut University of British Columbia U-Tokyo Center for Quantum Materials, signed on April 2017. A further memorandum of understanding between the Max Planck Society and the University of Tokyo was signed on April 2018. With the framework of these programs, numerous collaborations in condensed matter science has been established. A particularly unique aspect of this center is the internship program for undergraduate students. To date, 7 undergraduate students of U-Tokyo have had the opportunity to spend half a year, 2 semesters at MPI and complete project with MPI supervisions that are equivalent to bachelor thesis. This has been one of the most, if not the most, successful academic exchange programs available to undergraduate students at the University of Tokyo. We provided young undergraduate students chance to work on scientific projects in Germany. And we have already witnessed that the impact on young undergraduate students was much more significant than we had originally anticipated. I truly appreciate Professor Takagi's tireless efforts in enabling such a deeper level of scientific exchange. Although it may be modest on the grand scale, it provides a role model for the further strengthening of further partnerships within Germany and Japan. Needless to say, Professor Takagi has been a world leader in condensed matter physics, particularly in his many contributions to the discovery of exotic electronic phases of interacting electrons. Since the first confirmation of high TC superconductivity that occurred during the early stages of his career at the University of Tokyo, he has brought forth many major surprises and challenges to the condensed matter physics community, including the seminal discovery of electron-doped high-TC superconductors, the pseudo-gap phase in the high-TC cuprate superconductors, boron-carbide superconductors, a heavy fermion oxide, spin orbital mode insulators, and most recently, a quantum spin liquid. He has been the recipient of numerous prizes and awards, including the Heike Kamerin Honest Prize, the IBM Science Prize, the Honda Frontier Awards, the Prize for Science and Technology, the Commendation for Science and Technology by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Science, and Technology, and the Fellow of the American Physical Society, all of which testify the worldwide recognition of his contribution to science. Once again, I would like to congratulate Professor Takagi on his award. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Gonokami, for preparing this wonderful appreciation of Professor Takagi's work and for emphasizing his achievements as the first cross-appointed professor with a position both in Stuttgart and at your university, the University of Tokyo. We learned about Professor Takagi's dedication for creating and maintaining intercontinental links, not only between our two countries, but also internationally. It speaks for Professor Takagi's dedication that he specifically involves students and young researchers in these international networks. Now I would like to give the word to Professor Takagi for his brief statement.
Gono-kami-sensei, thank you very much for your warm and nice words. It is a great honor for me to receive the very last Eugen und Ilse Seibold-Preis for scientific collaboration between Germany and Japan. I'm so excited and glad that my 8 years of scientific and cultural adventure in Germany is appreciated by the prize. I would like to thank Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft, or the member of the selection committee, the nominators, Professor Klaus von Klitzin, Professor Shigemasa Suga, and Professor Makoto Gonokami for the honor. And finally, I greatly appreciate my colleagues at Max-Planck-Institut for Solid-State Research, University of Stuttgart, and the University of Tokyo, in particular, Professor Bernhard Heimer, Dr. Ulrich Vedig, Professor Martin Dressel, Dr. Kentaro Kitaga, and of course my family, Machi and Naoto. Without their support, my 8 years of adventure would not have been possible at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Takagi. We shall continue with the laudation for Professor Mathias. This will be delivered by Professor Urs Matthias Zachmann, Department of History and Cultural Studies, Free University of Berlin. Let's have a look at this video.
Dear Professor Mathias, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to deliver the laudatory speech for one of the most eminent colleagues in the German language scholarly community of Japanese studies to receive the Eugen and Ilse Seibold-Preis today. The award is given to scholars who make outstanding contributions to the mutual understanding of Japan and Germany. Professor Mathias has made tremendous contributions to this effect in many roles: as a scholar, as an institution builder, and as a champion of future generations in Japanese studies. Professor Mathias began her path as a scholar at Bochum University, where she enrolled in Japanese studies and history. Soon, this path took her to Vienna and later on, for a year, to Kyushu University in Fukuoka. The sum of this experience and knowledge accumulated eventually in a PhD in the field of Japanese economic history on the subject of coal mining and labor organization in the region of northern Kyushu. Already this study established her as one of the foremost experts of social and economic history of early and modern Japan in the German-speaking community, a reputation which she has asserted also internationally in a busy life of research 40 years hence, through numerous international publications and research cooperations. Having been appointed first to a chair at the University of Duisburg, Professor Mathias then was called back to Bochum University in 1996, a position which she held until her formal retirement in 2016. During these years, Professor Mathias has transformed Bochum into one of the most lively centers of the historical study of Japan in Germany. Even in my student days, Bochum has been a frequent place to visit and has remained so throughout my career, be it for a Japanologin Tag, a conference, or for a workshop. All of this owing to Professor Mathias' scholarship, energy, and genius of hospitality. From Bochum, Regine Mathias has acted as a key driver in the professionalization of Japanology in Germany, both on the scholarly as well as personal level. Her meticulous studies of modern Japan, not as a singularity, but as a meaningful non-Western case within the empirical and theoretical framework of the disciplines, have decisively contributed to the maturation of the subject at a time when Japan was still considered by many as an exotic outlier. Her remarkable ability to communicate the findings of her studies in a clear, concise, and yet elegant academic language also helped to disseminate knowledge to a wider audience and raise awareness for the multifaceted phenomenon that is Japan. Beyond dissemination, Professor Mathias' passion and scholarly dedication have inspired a whole new generation of students, some of which have now come to fill important chairs of Japanese studies in Germany and in other parts of Europe and in Japan. Thus, many a good friend and colleague in my field has started out under Professor Mathias' tutelage and mentorship. To complete the picture, we should of course also mention the many institutional roles that Professor Mathias has assumed throughout her career and fulfilled in her usual cheerful, effective and unassuming way. For many years, she has been the director of the Seibold Archive at Bochum, this being one of the most important reference points for the history of Japanese studies in Germany. Not to mention the service to many important science institutions such as the DFG, the Max Weber Foundation, or the Jade Stiftung. And far from being retired, Professor Mathias is still most active in this field. Thus, with her husband, Professor Erik Bauer, she is currently working at the European Center of Japanese Studies in Alsace, the CEJA, setting up from their own donation an extensive library of Japanese studies to aid study and research cooperation there. I myself had the privilege to spend a few blissful days at the center some years ago and also to visit this truly awe-inspiring library. I hope that this prize will greatly aid this new venture. Again, I would like to express my heartfelt congratulations to Professor Mathias. Gonyusho omedetou gozaimasu.
Yes, thank you, Professor Zachmann, for your excellent eulogy. You have shown how Professor Mathias' invaluable contributions to international research with numerous publications and collaborations have pushed the field of Japanese studies forward. Thank you also for an impression regarding the research environment in Bochum, which keeps playing a major role in generating collaborations and mutual understanding amongst the academic communities in both countries. After Professor Zachmann's laudation, I would like to hand over to Professor Mathias for her statement.
Thank you, Professor Zachmann, for your really kind words. The Eugen and Ilse Seibold-Preis, as I have to admit, came as a complete surprise to me, and I feel very honored and happy to accept it. I also accept it on behalf of my colleagues at the universities of Bonn, Duisburg, and of course the Ruhr University Bochum, where I have worked for the last 20 years. On behalf of the European Center of Japanese Studies in Alsace, where I'm engaged now, and the many Japanese colleagues and friends who have promoted lively exchanges with Japan over the past decades. I would like to thank the DFG and the Eugen and Ilse Seibold Foundation for this award. And I would like also, and of course, the selection committee who choose me for this very honorable position. I would also like to thank the DFG for this, the efforts they have taken to host such a wonderful ceremony despite the restrictions caused by the pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mathias. We will continue with the laudation of Professor Thomas Weigand from the Institute for Foreign and International Criminal Law at the University of Cologne. Professor Weigand is introducing the work of our awardee, Professor Takayama. The screen is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Professor Takayama, it is a special honor and pleasure for me to speak on the occasion of Professor Takayama Kanako receiving the Eugen und Ilse Seibold-Preis. This prize is to honor scholars who have made excellent contributions to the mutual understanding between Japan and Germany. Professor Takayama ideally fits this description. She is a renowned and trusted ambassador between Japanese and German legal academia, especially in the area of criminal law and criminal procedure. Please allow me to say a few words about Professor Takayama's background and merits. Professor Takayama is one of Japan's leading scholars in criminal law. She has studied law at the University of Tokyo and in 1993 obtained a master's degree from that university. After some years as a lecturer and an associate professor at Seijo University, in 2002 she joined the law faculty of Kyoto University, where she now teaches and does research as a full professor of criminal law. Professor Takayama has published numerous books and articles, not only in Japanese, but also in English and German. She has been able to do so because German and English are like second and third mother tongues to her. Her scholarship extends to a broad array of important and timely subject matters, covering inter alia the general part of the criminal law, criminal sanctions, especially the death penalty, economic crime, sexual offenses, international criminal law, and the interrelation between medicine and criminal law. In her publications, she also takes account of social problems influencing crime, such as criminality in aging societies. Professor Takayama is also known for her active interest in promoting important social causes, such as the rights of women and the continued abstention of Japan from military interventions abroad. In international legal discourse on criminal law and criminology, Professor Takayama is widely recognized as the voice of Japan. Since 2004, she has been Deputy Secretary General of the International Association of Penal Law, the leading international society of criminal law scholars. She also is Secretary General for Asia of the International Society for Social Defense, an association specializing in international exchange on issues of sanctioning. Although Professor Takayama's renown extends around the whole world, her oldest and most intensive ties are with Germany. Even as a young master student at the University of Tokyo, she displayed a strong interest in German law. I recall with great pleasure some discussions we had when I visited her university in 1991. I cannot believe this is 30 years ago, when young Takayama-san was still a little shy and nervous, but asked very pertinent questions of the German visitor who had difficulty thinking of adequate replies. Professor Takayama has since visited Germany numerous times and has often spoken at binational and international conferences on various topics. Between 1998 and 2000, she was an Alexander von Humboldt visiting scholar at the Institute of Foreign and International Criminal Law of the University of Cologne, where I had the pleasure of hosting her. She also spent a sojourn at the University of Frankfurt with a Humboldt Fellowship. Her special merits for the scientific exchange and cooperation between Japanese and German criminal law scholars have been recognized in many ways. Professor Takayama has in 2006 been awarded the Federal Cross of Merit on Ribbon, and in 2018 the President of the Federal Republic of Germany honored her with the Philipp Franz von Siebold Award. Since 2019, she is a Doctor honoris causa of the University of Hamburg, and she is one of a few foreign corresponding members of the German Society for Comparative Law. From conversations with Japanese colleagues, I know that Professor Takayama is widely recognized in Japan as an authority on German criminal law. In sum, I cannot think of anyone in my field who would deserve the Eugen und Ilse Seibold-Preis more than Professor Takayama. She is very modest, but she has contributed immensely to promoting the scientific exchange and cooperation between Japan and Germany in the area of criminal law and procedure, both by her numerous publications and her personal devotion to nurturing ties between scholars of both countries. It is sad that the pandemic precludes me from presenting my congratulations in person, but I feel closely connected to Professor Takayama at this festive occasion, despite the physical distance between us. Please accept my very best wishes and my hope for future cooperation.
Thank you, Professor Weigand, for this wonderful speech that has given us insights into the impressive engagement of Professor Takayama in international research. You have met Professor Takayama first when she was a master's student in Tokyo, and now she is a well-renowned professor with engagement in international committees. And indeed, the recognition that she is receiving shows that her support for the exchange between our two countries cannot be overstated. Let me now turn to Professor Takayama and hand over to her for her statement.
Thank you, Professor Weigand. Dear Dr. Ahrens, dear Dr. Krüßmann, distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends, I'm greatly honored by this laudation and thank you all for the nomination. In fact, I had not at all expected it, so it was rather a surprise to me. But to my good luck, I have been given by you all until now many important opportunities for international development, both of my research and building networks among researchers of legal theories worldwide, from Eastern and Southeastern Asia, Europe, and Latin America. In particular, I am very glad to see that now more and more younger researchers in my field in many countries are following my interests and making progress in the same direction. I strongly believe that international mutual understanding in legal studies will contribute to better guarantee of human rights, peace, and future welfare of mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Takayama. Finally, we shall appreciate the laudation for Professor Inoue. This will be delivered by Professor Akira Sekiguchi from Department of Chemistry of the University of Tsukuba. I yield the floor to you, Professor Sekiguchi.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Akira Sekiguchi, Emeritus Professor at the University of Tsukuba. I'm now working at the AST, National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology. I'm very honored and great pleasure to give a speech at the Seibold Award ceremony for Professor Shigeyoshi Inoue, Technical University Munich. First of all, Shige, congratulations on receiving such a prestigious award. Shige worked in my group for 6 years as an undergraduate and a graduate student at the University of Tsukuba. The achievement during his PhD work was outstanding. He made several breakthroughs in silicon chemistry. Also, he played an important role as a pitcher in a baseball tournament between laboratories. After getting a PhD degree, Shige decided to pursue research abroad under Professor Mathias, Technical University Berlin, with the support of GSPS program and the Humboldt Foundations. Shige applied for the Humboldt Foundation support program for young people, Sofia Kovalskaya Award, and at the young age of 30, he was able to succeed in setting up his own laboratory at TU Berlin. Such a chance is unthinkable in Japan. A general support system for foreign researchers, a postdoctoral fellow in Germany opened his own laboratory at the age of 30 was reported in Japanese newspapers. The effort of Shige have brought a great opportunity for research collaborations and exchange between Germany and Japan. Indeed, he contributed not only to chemistry research in Germany, but also to cultural exchange between Germany and Japan. Through his research life in Germany, Shige was also blessed with opportunity to connect with many people. For example, in 2011, Shige was invited by the German government to accompany the German President Wolf as attendant during the visit on the occasion of commemoration of the 150th anniversary of Japan and Germany. They visited many places in Japan, including Prime Minister official residence, Fukushima area, Goethe Institute, and so on. Furthermore, in 2015, Shige was invited to an interview with the Chancellor Angela Merkel at the Prime Minister's office. Chancellor Angela Merkel and Shige exchanged issues in the German language on the cooperative program between scientists between Japan and Germany, and the nuclear power conversion to sustainable energy. From 2009 until now, Shige has also contributed to the German-Japanese research exchange program. Shige has also accepted Japanese students and many postdocs in Germany and over the world. And also he has accepted short-term international students from Japan. Munich is a center of the silicon chemistry globally, and he has conducted various cooperative research work with Wakahimi company. Shige is a prominent researcher who actively acts as one of the international leading chemists, particularly silicon chemists. I hope he'll continue to play an active role as a key researcher in cultural exchange between Germany and Japan. Again, congratulations, Shige. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much, Professor Shigeguchi, for this inspiring laudation. You have known Professor Inoue from the times when he was a student at Tsukuba University. So we thank you for sharing insights about his outstanding career, which has made Professor Inoue a role model for aspiring young researchers in Japan. Now, as a professor in Munich, he is making use of his experiences and his position to establish a lively exchange between Munich and Japan. And I would like to give the word to Professor Inoue.
Thank you very much. First of all, of course, I would like to thank Professor Akira Sekiguchi for your wonderful and heartfelt this year. I'm very impressed. And also being always supportive, and also everything you taught me, without your support, I wouldn't be here. Arigatou gozaimasu. Also, I do want to thank JFK and also selection committee and Eugen und Ilse Seibold-Preis Foundation for giving me this award. I should also point out the people who nominated me, Professor Hayashi, Professor Fischer, and Dr. Stagen. I'd like to also thank all the people who have been involved with me, particularly my team, current and former group members in Munich as well as in Berlin. Yes, it's my, of course, great pleasure and honor and a big surprise to receive this Seibold-Preis, because as a Japanese chemist or Japanese scientist, I have been here in Germany around 14 years, and I have always thought about the relationship between Japan and Germany and tried to contribute somehow. Therefore, I'm very grateful to receive Seibold-Preis which encouraged me, of course, a lot to continue my activity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Inoue. Thank you very much. Well, we would like to have a virtual toast with our awardees. And we have sent the awardees based in Germany a bottle of sparkling wine from the region of the Ahr Valley, which is located close to our headquarters here in Bonn. Maybe our participants from outside of Germany do not know that it was the Ahr Valley which has endured some of the worst damage during and after the flooding in July this year. So we have chosen this wine to show our support for the people in the region during these difficult times. I would like to ask the awardees to raise their glasses together with Mrs. Ingrid Krüßmann and me for a toast. On behalf of the DFG, I would like to thank you for your exceptional commitment. May the fruit of your work further strengthen the extremely prosperous relationship between Japan and Germany. Congratulations, herzlichen Glückwunsch und Omedetou gozaimasu. Oder Ingrid muss nochmal helfen.
Omedetou gozaimasu.
Gozaimasu. Tschüss. Ja, dann trinken wir jetzt. And we have special glasses for the Seibold-Preis.
So after this festive part with our awardees, we want to make use of this special occasion of coming together as a community from multiple disciplines and backgrounds. During the next part, we would like to engage in a discussion with our distinguished awardees and with you, dear participants and listeners. The leading theme of our discussion today is how we will make use of the so-called habits of the new normal and how we will deal with the many changes and challenges that were caused by the global pandemic in academic life. The term new normal describes the social changes and shifts towards new styles of working, doing research, living, and social interactions, all characterized by more physical distance and new online opportunities, as we have to admit. The quick expansion of online tools has simultaneously expanded our opportunities to interact and to connect over the world. And we are making use of these opportunities also in academia. We are aware that we are talking about times to come, which are currently characterized of great uncertainties and unpredictability. However, today we want to explore together how we will connect with each other internationally and what influence this new normal can have on exchange between our two countries and the world. How does the new normal influence careers of researchers in the international research communities? And how can we support especially young researchers at the start of their careers? Will we interact in online events as a normal kind of interaction? Or will we again need to meet personally to really connect? Do you feel something has been lost during the pandemic that only can be compensated by personal meetings? As we have learned from the laudations, all of our awardees bring a range of experiences in international collaboration and exchange. They have made use of the great potential of international collaboration and have in turn contributed to establishing tighter links between Japan and Germany. To kick off this day's discussions, today's awardees will give us a short impulse with insights into how they are experiences the conditions of international exchange and where they think the future development could go. I'm looking forward to a thought-provoking discussion with you. Dear audience, if you have a question to our awardees, just click on Q&A in the navigation bar on the left and send us your question to enable a lively discussion with our RVDs. Let me first start with Professor Mathias. Professor Mathias, what do you think? How will cooperation be shaped in a situation after the acute phase of the pandemic, when Japan and Germany will try to re-establish a new normal of cooperation?
Well, I don't know how cooperation at the political and economic level will be changed after the pandemic, but I would like to say something about my own field, research in Japanese history, or in a broader sense in the humanities, as we try to reach a new normal for cooperation. First, I really think that direct personal exchange and cooperation will continue to be very important. During the pandemic, the possibilities of virtual cooperation have expanded dramatically. And I'm thinking especially of video conferencing and file sharing and so on. And this has had positive effects, as it is now possible to keep in close contacts with colleagues over large distances without having to travel. But longer periods of study in the other country and direct personal collaboration in research will be of central importance in the future. Video conferences and databases in the internet can only take you so far. For in-depth studies in Japanese history, for example, you need materials from archives, museums, and local libraries, which are mostly not on the internet. And social scientists have to do empirical research in the field, that is, in Japan. Moreover, I think that a prolonged stay in Japan or in Germany for Japanese scholars is often a formative experience, especially for younger scholars and scientists. It can lead to new perspectives, and it gives them a chance to build networks with Japanese colleagues or German colleagues that can last a lifetime and often form the basis for future collaboration. At the same time, I think that promotion of cooperation should remain broad. There is a tendency for many universities to cut down in favor of, for example, the life sciences and other hard sciences. And in my opinion, this is a mistake. I think that the Eugen and Ilse Seibold-Preis has been exemplary in this respect because the award has gone to researchers in both the humanities in the broadest sense and sciences. Such a balance is quite rare, but very important. We should also continue to intensify cooperation between Japan and Germany. This, again, has been an important goal of the Eugen and Ilse Seibold Award, and I think still more can be done. In Germany, research collaboration in the humanities often still focuses on Europe and the US. But we need to include more and more other parts of the world, partners like Japan, as a matter of course. I think the possibilities of virtual cooperation could be an effective means to move into that direction. Having said all this, we nevertheless have to ask ourselves, and I think that's a rather bold question in this context, what significance will research cooperation between Japan and Germany have in the future? The trend is towards increasingly global studies and global research alliances. Does bilateral collaboration as opposed to multilateral still make sense? And if so, and I think it is, what are its advantages? Such questions will be asked more and more in the future, and I think that might be an important point for the following discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Mathias, for your statements. And we appreciate that you underlined the value of the humanities and research also in the humanities. And your thoughts on the comparison between bilateral and also multilateral cooperation ties. So now I would like to pass on the word to Professor Inoue. Professor Inoue, how can we integrate especially young scientists into existing cooperation in times of the new normal, during times where they have difficulties to travel?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I think to integrate a young scientist is, of course, always very important for the collaborative research. We should, of course, always think about it, or to increase the number of young scientists involved in the cooperation. As you also mentioned at the beginning of this ceremony, while DFG and JSPS renewed recently their IRTG, International Research Training Groups. This is going to be, of course, a good option, I think. But for young chemists or young scientists, particularly in a new normal phase, I think we should think about other platforms. For them, of course, social media like Twitter or Instagram or YouTube are becoming more and more important, I guess. And many research groups have their own official Twitter account. We can easily find new information about publication or funding opportunity, and also even like open positions, right, for PhD or postdocs. Therefore, we can use this platform to motivate the young scientists. Yeah, also, I think the other online platform, as you know, right, the Zoom or Teams or WebEx will also be a good option. We can easily meet collaborative partner, at least virtually, and we can attend easily at many attractive conferences at home. And another thing what we can do to use this online platform is to organize a little more specific research groups or generation. Recently, I have seen several symposia have been actually organized by online, where the speakers are only young scientists, right, like a PhD student or postdocs, and a very active discussion there. And these platforms are very attractive for them. However, of course, we can think about, or we should think about a disadvantage of online, right? The time difference is always tricky if you want to do collaboration, for instance, international collaboration, right? And another thing is let's say that the collaborative research often starts with informal conversation or direct conversation at personal meeting. Right? For instance, having a chat during a coffee break, lunchtime, or banquets are always very important, particularly for young scientists. They are eager to have it, need it. And these direct interaction motivated young scientists a lot. Therefore, I think in the future, a nice mixture of online and face-to-face meeting will be a good option.
Thank you, Professor Inoue. In fact, I'm grateful you mentioned the time difference. So if you are a German researcher, you really need to get up early in the morning to cooperate and to have online conferences, especially with your Japanese colleagues. Thanks also for mentioning the new means of communications that are used by the younger scientists and which will most probably become more and more common. So I think we will experience many more new tools of the media to use in the future. Okay, I would like to hand over to Professor Takayama. What do you think, Professor Takayama? Will personal meetings become less important, and can the format of the video conferences that we just talked about replace personal communication in one room or in the evening meeting in an izakaya?
No, I think that personal meetings are still as important as before, and video conferences cannot entirely replace personal communication. My field, social sciences, is similar more or less to other fields. Of course, it is true that there are merits of video conferences. A trip to Europe, for example, to go and come back takes a lot of time and also money. By using online systems, we can plan many more meetings. Still, there remain limits as well. Difficult to overcome is, firstly, the time difference. Today, colleagues in Germany are taking part in this meeting quite early in the morning, whereas in Japan here, it is already after the normal working time. Therefore, it is necessary either that the duration of one meeting is limited to shorter time, or that participants must change their working time largely. Secondly, for younger researchers in legal studies, it is essentially important to have real experiences in foreign countries in order to understand culture, background, and tradition of foreign legal systems, what can never be replaced by online conferences. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, I led PhD course students to European countries for symposia and collecting information. Experiences obtained through such occasions have a great impact on their research and also give motives to deepen their own theories. Thirdly, possibilities of multilateral exchanges of knowledge and ideas for research are limited. In my research field, not only discussion during the official sessions is important, but also communication during coffee breaks and meals, or talk before and after the conference program. Mingling system is similar to such opportunities, but cannot take over it totally. Recently, every time I participate in an online event, I realize its limits and strongly wish recovery of personal meetings. So I would like to conclude that new development of video conferences does not replace previous practice, but rather increase chances for international scientific cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Takayama. I have to admit, I couldn't agree more with what you said, and we all think that we do miss personal meetings and coffee breaks to have some informal talk. So thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. And now I would like to pass on the words to Professor Takagi. How did you benefit from international exchange in your career?
Okay. So, yeah, of course, I obtained a lot of benefit from international exchange in my career. The most important benefit of my science, clearly, is that I could have constructed a worldwide research network out of exchange, which allowed me to access the machine with the world's best resolution and to discuss with the most knowledgeable person in the world on the specific topic. And without such international network, I could have produced much less scientifically in the last 30 years. And my network originates and grows largely from experience of working together and informal discussion during international exchange. Most importantly, my period at Bell Labs and currently at the Max-Planck-Institut. And I always recommend my young colleagues to work abroad at least once in their career, if possible, as it is crucial in constructing their functioning international network. And my most recent international exchange was the move to Max-Planck-Institut 8 years ago, of course, from which I obtained the optimized research environment for my science. The long-term steady support on basic research is one of the strengths of Max-Planck system, perhaps the world best. And that I'm working on curiosity and serendipity-based material exploration. The system, perfectly fits to my style of research that motivated to come to Germany. And besides, Max-Planck gave me option of promotion of student exchange with University of Tokyo, which was quite attractive for me in terms of education. Sorry, yeah, I think my microphone muted. International exchange merit my career, not only in science, but also in management function. I experienced management in Japan and came to Germany. And it was unusual, but interesting experience to serve as a director of German Institute, which gave me some idea on not only the strengths, but also the weakness, including those from the famous German bureaucracy in the German system. And I find it quite useful to have such swap analysis based on the comparison of the two systems in managing the institute. And some of weakness had to be recognized by German native directors. That's, kind of great, outcome from international exchange. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Takagi, for sharing your experiences in international cooperation. I would just like to stay for a short moment on this aspect of personal meetings that Professor Takayama just mentioned so rightly. So, Professor Mathias, we have just heard that personal meetings are an important factor for cooperation. What intensity of informal exchange is needed for a successful cooperation? For example, how important do you think it's important to meet at an izakaya in the evening to have some informal exchange, getting together, exchanging just personal views? How do you think does the lack of this influence current research? I think we have some technical issues here. Professor Inoue, would you like to comment on that?
Okay. You mean regarding the informal?
The informal exchange. What grade of importance does it have for you, for your research?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think this direct conversation or this personal meeting is always effective or important. And particularly if you mentioned informal conversation is very important if you don't have concrete or solid idea, but want to do something with a collaborative partner. I think that can be progress or facilitated by such an informal conversation or drink together at the izakaya, I guess.
Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks for sharing your opinion. I'm just seeing a question in the chat here. So that is directed at the DFG Secretary General, Mrs. Ahrens. How does the DFG deal with the challenges of the pandemic and with the new normal? Mrs. Ahrens.
Yes, thank you for that question. And as a matter of fact, we had to react very immediately on the pandemic situation last year. And in the first instance, we had a two-pronged approach because in first instance, we had to look to safeguard our staff, but we also have to keep the procedures for the evaluations and application processes keep on going, and therefore we had to move to written votes and video conferences that had been used for the evaluation processes. So the meetings of the boards took place in a virtual space, and we had written votes that made it even shorter. As you mentioned, the meetings couldn't be so long as before. And the other measures that we took very immediately was an bridging financing in projects that ended or had to be evaluated. So we had a number of measures that was worth 175 million euro over the years. So for extensions for coordinated programs or projects, or even so for fellowships. And also, was it possible to postpone the fellowships in the long run? On the other hand, our president, Professor Katja Becker, established a pandemic commission that was built up with researchers from different disciplines, interdisciplinary commission that asked for several calls. And we have a new program called Focus Program to react very immediately and in a short-term way on the challenges of the pandemic situation, and had 6 calls in this time and received a number of applications in different fields. So it's not only into the virology, but also in economic fields and also on education, or for the question of classroom ventilation, maybe how aerosols are going in the rooms. So there were different approaches in this conference, and only yesterday we had a conference called Preparedness for the Future Pandemics from a Global Perspective with 300 participants that had been funded in our programs, and also from international partners, where we wanted to give space for the cooperation and for new ideas for research into the pandemic situation. Another question is how the consequences are for the science system as a whole. And so we have set up a Senate working group that is dealing with the consequences of the pandemic situation with regard to new funding opportunities, but also to the question, how can do we have to organize in the new normal our evaluation processes? And this is a very controversial debate. On one hand, there are young people that are looking for sustainability aspects and say we should have more virtual conferences and more virtual formats for the evaluation process. And others that say, no, we have to meet in person, like our Avadis also mentioned, and it's very important to meet us. And we think we have to find a mixture for that. So we have very good experience with the counseling for coordinated programs, so we stick to the virtual project and the counseling that is in a bilateral modus, and we think about that we have physical meetings for the evaluation processes and also on-site meetings when we look for coordinated programs at universities. The mindset of the young scientists has changed, and also some scientists told us that young people are more hesitating to go to other countries, and so we have to look for the question, how are the consequences for international cooperation?
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Ahrens. I see now questions in the chat. So we have a question for Professor Takayama. You have mentioned real experiences. Which kind of experiences are the most valuable ones from your perspective? Could you elaborate on that, Professor Takayama?
Yes, my research field is mainly criminal law and criminal procedure, comparative criminal law. And to understand the phenomena of criminal offenses or criminality, it is very important to understand the background of such offenses. And also, it is important to know the people, how the local people think about this social situation and so on. So just to read books or materials, judgment and so on, it is possible also in Japan here. But in order to really to understand the background or development of the foreign legal system, it is important to visit the country or some area to have the more information, general information about the research topic. And also the personal exchanges are important to develop knowledge and ideas outside of the conference topics. So the general human communications and our interests have very essential meanings in research. So therefore, I strongly hope that my younger students will able to visit Germany or other countries in the near future.
Yama, we do hope so too. So now I can welcome back Mrs. Mathias, who had some technical issues just when I asked the question. So I'm not sure if you still were able to hear the question. I briefly repeated again, Professor Mathias. So I was asking what intensity of informal exchange is needed for a successful communication. You were mentioning the humanities, so maybe you would like to elaborate a bit on that.
Yes, sorry, I had a system breakdown, but now I hope it's fixed. I think when we talked with students about conferences, we really used to say that besides all the information and knowledge you can get there, the most important parts are the breaks, coffee breaks, and the dinners in the evening and this kind of things, because in very informal atmosphere, many new research ideas are born. And I think for short-term exchange of knowledge or for organizing things, the internet and the virtual conferences are very important and very good. But as I said in my short statement, if you are dealing with another country, be it in law or be it in humanities or social sciences, and it's very important to have the personal experience. And for example, studying there for 1 year or doing research in a team there really gives you a lot of opportunities to form networks. And these networks are mostly the most sustainable basis for future collaboration. So I think it's not enough to go there for just 1 day or 2 days for a conference. But for example, at the university, we had exchange with students and postdocs for half a year who came to visit us in Bochum. And the SEJA, where I'm working right now, is inviting student groups from our partner universities to come to this area in between 3 countries, Germany, Swiss, and France, to experience Europe, as we say it. They go to Strasbourg and they meet their counterparts from Strasbourg University. They see the European Council there. They go to Freiburg and see the Green City there. So beyond the idea of only exchange at the university level, we are also trying here to continue that kind of exchange. And I think it matters. We had many students who came here for 10 days, 14 days, and then decided to come here for a year or maybe even longer to study abroad. And this is very important to overcome the, as you said, the shyness to go abroad, or the barrier which seems to exist among many students to really leave home and go abroad for a longer period. I think that sort of intensified direct personal experience is very important.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Mathias. I already have the next question for you, but before I will ask you again, I would like to ask Professor Takayama about the situation in Japan. So how do the universities in Japan deal with the pandemic situation? What measures are being taken? As our Secretary General just elaborated on the measures that the DFG took to deal with the pandemics. So how is the situation in Japan? And maybe you could enlighten us a bit about those measures.
Yes, currently the COVID-19 situation has become much better than before. Last year, most of our lectures at the universities were given online only, but recently the pandemic situation is better. So universities have started gradually online and on-place lectures or hybrid lectures, namely mixture of on-place and online participation. So, for example, I teach at the Kyoto University for a larger group of hundreds of students, in a hybrid system, and for smaller classes, I teach in classrooms. And of course, there are students who still have some difficulties in coming to university. So most of the lectures are given in hybrid style. And I hope that this good situation will continue in Japan, but still we have to be very careful so that the pandemic will not be bigger as like before. So anyway, and now our university sends also some students to foreign countries after checking conditions and situations of their own and also of the accepting countries. So we have started slowly international exchanges.
Yeah, and I hope it will take up very soon so that we can travel again between the two countries, of course. Now I have a couple of questions here in the Q&A. So the next question goes to Professor Takagi. The question is, how do you manage to be in two different research systems at the same time? Yeah, you need to unmute yourself, please. Maybe
okay.
just now it worked. Yeah. We hear you.
So yeah, it was a kind of big challenge for me during 8 years, and what I decided was of course the operation system kind of different, but we are doing the same science. So therefore, my policy was not to distinguish two groups and run two sites at the same group, like sharing group meeting together, like collaboration between daily collaboration between Tokyo and Stuttgart. It was rather difficult to run two systems independently. So my policy is just merge two into one. And online tool certainly helped me a lot. In particular, after the pandemic, this Zoom system became quite popular. So I didn't have any difficulty to communicate student for both sides daily. I think we should utilize this online tool in a kind of a positive, manner. I think, I fully agree with Professor Mathias. It's not, exclusive for, physical face-to-face, meeting. It is, additional tool to enhance, exchange.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Takagi, for elaborating on that. So again, I'm referring to the questions that I see in the Q&A. So this is a question which is directly directed to all the awardees simultaneously. So please choose yourself if you want to comment that question. The question is, what kind of new networks should be established for strengthening the cooperation between Japan and Germany? Do you have any suggestions on that? It's always a challenge to address 4 awardees simultaneously. So who would try to answer first the question?
Well, maybe I can start. I think there are many networks working quite well, but it might be interesting to establish more networks between younger scholars. Which are depending on the experience of having studies abroad, but also centering around a common topic, and are maybe somewhat informal, but could serve for an intensified exchange of knowledge. I think most of the networks are quite formal and you have meetings and all these things, but it would be good to have something where you could experiment with these things for younger people. And I don't know exactly how to introduce such networks, but I think one should try to think about some kind of formation of networks, especially for elder students, master students, and younger people between universities or between associations, for example, for history or for something like that. Just an idea. There are such networks, but there could be more, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Mathias. Well, also there would be the international research training groups for doctoral students, which the DFG already offers. So that might be also a very good instrument to be used. But now we have Professor Takagi. You wanted to comment on that?
Yeah, so at least, my field, physics, chemistry. So I see, a lot of exchange between Germany and Japan at the level of postdoc, maybe PhD student, but not at the lower level. And I do see, many, European countries and other countries in Asia sending undergraduate to, Germany as internship student, and it gives us a very good seed to start kind of international exchange at the earlier stage of career. And I feel that kind of exchange at younger age is lacking between Japan and Germany. So in addition to exchange of PhD student, if we could have internship program between Germany and Japan at the level of undergraduate, perhaps senior undergraduate student, I think it's gonna open their eye to international network.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Takagi. Do we have any other comments on that from the awardees? Yeah, Professor Takayama.
Yeah, thank you. I'm now trying to develop a satellite system, so to say. Namely, as you know, European younger researchers are mostly very good at talking in English, but we Japanese are still learning English or German and so on, and also other Asian people. So in some international conferences, I combine the on-place group and the online connections. Namely, for example, at my university, at Kyoto University, doctor course students get together in one classroom at the university here, and it is connected to foreign group, for example, in China. And in China, there is also a satellite in Beijing or Wuhan and so on. And one university has a lot of younger students. Not all of them are good at English or in Japanese. Then usually if all participants were connected in one meeting equally, then younger students would have difficulties in talking in other languages and pose questions. But if they get together in one classroom in Kyoto, then they would feel ease to take part in the discussion, and then professors or interpreters would help them participate in the discussion. So the group here in Kyoto and the group in another country and so on, then they will be connected, and that's my satellite system. And so far it is working quite well.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Takayama. The satellite system sounds very challenging, but also very interesting. So we should continue talking about that. So, Professor Inoue, if you want to have the chance also to comment, I would like to give you the chance.
Okay, thank you for giving me a chance. Yeah, because I still have feeling the DFG's IRTG is one of the best program or opportunity to accelerate such a collaboration, particularly for young scientists. Therefore, I think this is going to be continued. But I don't know. But one suggestion could be how do you think about if you connect with this IRTG with the double degree system? I don't know. Probably challenging because we have to think about or discuss with both universities, and gonna be tricky. But that's probably will also be good for the student or at least PhD student level.
Yeah, Professor Inoue, that's really true. So we should continue discussing this too. I'm looking at the chat and also at the remaining time that we have. So I would like to give Professor Mathias the chance. She has two questions simultaneously here, which I will just both read out to you so that you can answer them first. So the first question is that there are particular challenges, but also opportunities of the pandemic for the field of humanities or social sciences. So maybe you could elaborate a bit also on the opportunities of the pandemic for the humanities. And the second question would be, what arrangements are needed for collaboration? Will a museum or library need staff to digitize materials for researchers who cannot visit? So I would like to direct both questions to you now, Professor Mathias.
Well, thank you very much. I definitely be strongly in favor of direct personal exchange. I also am very strongly supporting the new opportunities brought about by the virtual cooperation. one thing is that you can join in so many events with lectures and other things which you could not have joined if there would not have been an online conference. So it really gives you a much broader idea of what's going on and of learning about new things, and that's really good. Sometimes it's nearly too much, but we really enjoy this. And especially if you have the lockdown or confinement and you can still go on to various places and listen to interesting lectures, that is quite a great chance. And I think we should continue this, at least maybe in the form of hybrid events and hybrid conferences. So these opportunities are there. And also, as I said before, the opportunities to more easily organize meetings and talks and overcome distances, and also be if you think of climate change, I think traveling by plane will be more and more, being viewed very critical, especially if it's for very short periods. And so this might be really helped greatly by having the opportunities of virtual connections. The second question is an interesting one. In Bochum, we had in the first contract with a Japanese university, which was the University of Tokyo, we had one passus which said that both universities and researchers would support each other in providing materials from the other side, which was at that time in 1969 it was between 1965 and 9, the contract was finally made in 69, was a very important point because you had much more difficulties to get and find materials. Nowadays you have another strong point of the virtual world. You have a lot of access to digitized materials. Then this became less and less important because people went to the other country and collected their materials by themselves. But the pandemic has shown us how much we need to go there and find it. It has been difficult. I think it would be very important, and maybe we should even have some money to give to the institution which we want to digitize some materials. During the pandemic, it was difficult because many people did not work in the museum or in the library, but at home. And even you could not ask them for digitizing things. But it is an important point. And I think the digitization of holdings of libraries and archives should really be accelerated. And there should be money for this. As important as the longest stay in the field is, it is just as important to bring your research results, your findings into the net and not only in the form of books or similar things.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Mathias. We are approaching the end of our Q&A session with a last question, which goes to Professor Inoue. So that's a question on your personal experiences. So the question is, how are you motivating young German students at TU Munich to work with Japan? What is your experience? So are they willing to motivate with Japan, and what have you experienced in that field, Professor Inoue?
Yeah, of course, if they want, I always try to support their, let's say, research exchange with Japan, although, of course, during this pandemic, it's going to be tough. But I have also supervised some postdoc, not PhD students, who got the position now, or industry position in Japan. Therefore, it's also good, so to say, example who worked with me and then later on got the job in Japan. Therefore, if my students or postdoc are really interested in doing or finding the job in Japan, I of course like to support.
Yeah. Thank you for elaborating on this. I think you are a good role model to motivate young students to cooperate with Japan, of course. Well, thanks to all our awardees for this discussion and for your insights into different matters. And well, now we still have an interesting part of our event to follow. With this, I would like first to pass on the words to Mrs. Ahrens for her final remarks before the mingling.
Okay, thank you very much, Ingrid. Yes, first of all, I would like to thank the awardees once again for their participation and for their lively contributions during the panel. Listening to your comments and experiences, I feel very confident and inspired about the development of international cooperation and international partnerships. To you, international exchange has indeed become a natural process, it seems, and this surely is a good example for others to follow. We all are aware that we need international partnerships to deal with the various global challenges that we are facing as a global community. In a world that is dealing with the worst pandemic in 100 years and is confronted with the threats of climate change, loss of biodiversity, and social inequality, there is a critical demand for research and knowledge. What we know today results from basic research within each respective field of science and the humanities, and also from long-term funding of research areas that might not be in the public focus for many years. For example, the messenger RNA vaccine has been developed more than 20 years ago, also with funding from the DFG. For the best researchers to come together, the DFG is collaborating with partner organizations worldwide in order to enable and maintain the best conditions for excellent research. I am happy to say that we will continue to put the strongest emphasis on supporting collaborations with Japan, and I believe that there is even more potential for joint research in the future. This is evident from the positive feedback regarding funding opportunities for joint research. I wish to thank everyone who has supported the Eugen and Ilse Seibold-Preis, and a huge thank you to everyone who is supporting international cooperation day by day. Be you a researcher, a research funder, an assistant at a research institute, or simply an interested individual from another field. Let us continue to be curious about each other and continue to put our strengths together to create new knowledge. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to meet you in the mingling.
Yeah, I would also like to thank you for your participation in today's event from my side. I hope to meet you all in person again as soon as possible. In the meantime, if you have any questions regarding the cooperation of the DFG with Japan, please do not hesitate to contact us, the Japan team, which you can see here on the slide. And also here in person on the stage and on the screen in Tokyo. Thanks for the hard work of our whole team, and thanks to Mrs. Ahrens, and arigato. Yeah. Okay.